Part of my ministry is the desire to bring together the practical with the biblical. And oftentimes I get letters or emails, not letters, but emails from people that ask me questions. And there's a certain theme that comes up frequently. And one of those is basically talking about kind of like, isn't the Bible all we need? Like they're asking me, like, why do we need your classes? Why do we need your YouTube videos? Why do we need to hear about all this extra stuff? Isn't the Bible enough to guide us? Do we really have to go into our childhood and look at what happened? Like, isn't the Bible enough? And most Christians would say, oh, yeah, of course it is. The Bible is all we need. Just like the same thing where they say Jesus is all we need. And I do have a video on that if you want to go back and look at that. So is the Bible all we need? Well, I think that's a basic misunderstanding in about how the Bible and how we live our lives as Christians. So the Bible gives us lots of input on all kinds of things, but a lot about how to live relationally and spiritually. But it doesn't give us everything we need. Because think about these things. It does not provide details on how to take care of our health or cure specific illnesses. We need doctors. We need medical journals. We need books. We need all the training that goes into the doctor's training to figure out what we have, and all the research that has researched cures. Doesn't provide legal advice on current laws and wouldn't tell us how to approach a problem that we have in, say, a lawsuit, or maybe our rights in our Constitution in a legal case where maybe we've been arrested for something. We would need attorneys for that. You would need an attorney. Okay. It doesn't give us specific advice on the details of a dysfunctional relationship. We have principles in the Bible that talk about forgiveness and being kind and being honest and not lying to each other and loving each other. But what do you do when you're dealing with somebody with mental illness? It doesn't tell you that. What do you do when you're dealing with a narcissist? You need to understand narcissism. How do you deal with somebody who has an addiction? Okay, now you could say, oh, well, it tells me that addiction is sin, but well, wait a minute. How do you get somebody who react to somebody who's using, what boundaries would you put with that? Specifically, what if it's your child? What if that child has a mental illness? So many complicating factors. Okay, we need therapists, we need books, and we need classes like my class, especially my classes, if you want to know how to apply biblical principles to a dysfunctional relationship rather than just go to self-help books that don't have a spiritual bent, which there isn't anything wrong, in my opinion, with doing those either. I learned a lot from those. And there were times that there wasn't anything available that had a biblical bent that I desperately needed knowledge on, that I had to go to that. And that's still the case today. Doesn't tell us how to fix a broken vehicle. We need mechanics who know how to do that. Doesn't teach us how to read or how to do math. We need teachers. And it doesn't tell us about the geographical world that we live in today, because it has maps of the past. It has maps of the world during the time where the history of Israel in the Bible. But we need maps. Okay, we need people to draw maps and to understand the world. I could go on and on and on with examples. I think you know what I'm doing. I'm explaining that we do need knowledge in lots of other areas in addition to the Bible. Now, as long as it doesn't teach us something, new agey, where it goes against the principles of the Bible or present another God, which none of those things are going to, if we're looking for that particular type of advice, it doesn't hurt to. And it only helps for us to consider what we can learn from those other areas. We all need help from others, especially those who have gone before us or who have experience and knowledge in areas that we're struggling in. And why do we need to look at our childhood? We need to look at our childhood not to blame, not to excuse our actions today, not to dwell on the past or dwell on the negative or pull up all the old feelings. No, we need to understand our childhood and our previous relationships, because all of those themes impact who we are today. They impact how we react, they impact what we do, they impact how we respond. And we need to understand like where we came from to understand why we're doing what we are today. And that knowledge can break some really powerful patterns. It can provide some really powerful explanations. It could also even give us the ability to forgive. If you are really, really hurt and angry and just really caught in that place of resentment and unforgiveness toward a parent or a prior spouse, and you don't have any idea, like you don't get it, like why, how could this person possibly do these things, then you want to understand why that person did what they did. You might find out that that parent that you really struggle with forgiving also had an abusive parent. And then that may give you compassion and help you to let go of that resentment and that hurt. Also, you might find that what is, talks about in Romans 7, it's like what you don't want to do, you keep on doing. It's like, why am I caught in the throes of that addiction that I cannot get free of? Why do I intend to stop and not do that anymore? And then I just find myself, in addition to the fact that it is an addiction, which is the definition of an addiction, you don't want to do it and yet you still do it. But it is also the definition of what could be sin in your life, or it could be a wound, unresolved wounds that are so painful that you're using the addiction to kind of like cover up the pain because you don't know how to live with it or feel it and be okay. And so once you find out that that is what can cause an addiction, and you look at that wound and you get help dealing with that wound, then that can set you free from an addiction. I could go give you so many different examples. We need to understand the what and the why. Why are we doing what we're doing? What are we doing? What is the other person doing? Why is the other person doing it? How can I react to it? How can I respond to it? How can I set boundaries to protect myself or my children? How can I set boundaries to increase the likelihood that the other person that I love and care about will get help? All of this has a godly, positive outcome where we are breaking patterns of sin, breaking patterns of mistreatment, breaking patterns of doing things that we don't want to do. All of these things we can get by getting help outside the Bible from people who understand, and there's a good end. We can look at a good tree bears good fruit, a bad tree bears bad fruit. So if the result of you getting this information is that good things happen, or that you are given strength to deal with things, absolutely, it's okay. In 1 Timothy 5:23, it was the Apostle Paul told Timothy how to take care of his physical illness. He said, stop drinking only water. Use a little wine because of your stomach and your frequent illnesses. Look how practical that is. But that's not a medical journal for everyone with their illnesses. See, that was just Paul going to what was very practical, showing Timothy he cared about him. Proverbs 15:22, it says, plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed. You can get many advice. Now, don't get too many because you'll get confused if they're conflicting, but you need to go get counsel. You need to be willing to get what you need to figure out what you're doing. Colossians 3:23-24 is very practical. It says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Everything we do is spiritual service. So even taking care of ourselves, going to the doctor, getting help for our relationships so that good things will come out of them, all of that can be spiritual worship. Romans 12:1 and 2 tells us to not to be influenced by the world, but to, in everything, let everything be spiritual worship. Well, it's not to conform to the world, but that doesn't mean that we can't learn about what's going on, and that every part of our life can't be a form of spiritual worship. We don't have to separate the spiritual and the material. It's all part of our living for the Lord. In Deuteronomy 6:5-9, parents were told, people were told, love the Lord with your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Now, this is how to parent. Impress them on your young children. Now, listen to this. This is not just when you're doing worship or when you're doing devotions. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on your door frames of your houses and on your gates. We serve God by living while we live our whole lives. And even eating, even walking, even lying down, no matter what it is, that's the same thing as we're dealing with our problems, we're dealing with our practical issues. We can still serve God in those things, even when we need information and advice outside of the Bible. It's okay. It's almost being super legalistic when we say, oh, I can't go anywhere. And I bet you know some people that are legalistic. You can't do anything but the Bible, only this, only what's in the Word of God. And it just absolutely ties your hands. It's kind of like the Pharisees when Jesus told them, it's like, you are laying so much heaviness on people. You are taking your traditions and you're putting it on them and you're just weighing them down, but you won't lift a finger to help them. It's kind of like somebody saying, oh, you're dealing with a relationship problem. You're dealing with a child who's walked away from you or a spouse who's leaving you and you want to go to a counselor. Well, the Bible has everything you need. And you're like, I am broken and hurting and I need help. And I'm not getting it just from going to church and singing songs. In fact, my personal experience, when I was really hurting in the darkest places, sometimes reading the Bible was too much. It was too confusing. It was too painful. I was desperate for input. I was desperate for understanding, desperate for God to tell me where to go. And every verse I read, I would try to personalize it and say, is that God telling me something? Is God showing me something? And it got so confusing that it would just spin my head on top of everything else. And I'd have to put it away. And I would just have to say, okay, I'm just going to have to pray and I'm going to have to worship. That's all I can do. I cannot read the Bible. So that might be your experience also. So the other thing you're probably wondering, I'm thinking people are asking at this point, well, can I go see a non-Christian counselor? I have honestly had some really good non-Christian counselors, and I've had some not good Christian counselors, or vice versa. But so it doesn't have to do with whether somebody's Christian, it's whether somebody's a good counselor. Now, if you need specific guidance on the Bible or your spiritual walk, then yeah, don't go to a non-Christian counselor. Go to your pastor or a ministry leader or a spiritual advisor, somebody who can give you spiritual direction. Go to somebody who can address that part. But if you need therapy, if you need understanding about something dysfunctional, you need guidance in relationship, as long as the person is not of a particular bent, like a New Age type of counselor who is going to have a spiritual element, which is rare because counselors are taught to not bring their own faith into the therapy. And so that isn't the first place that they go. You're fine. And you can go try someone And if that feels uncomfortable, then you don't have to go back. Some people have only, I've had people try really hard to find a Christian counselor in their insurance network, and they haven't been able to do it. Not all therapists will answer the question, are you a Christian? Some of them will not put on their website that they are a Christian or that they have a faith base. Some will. And if you're lucky to find one, that's great. But not everyone can afford to pay therapy cash. And also, you can check with your church, check with people at your church, ask them if they can refer you to somebody. But again, that person might not be on your insurance network. You may not be able to afford a cash pay price. So I hopefully this has helped you and helped you to have a more relaxed, realistic, and practical way of living life as a Christian when you're dealing with problems. God bless you. Thank you for watching.